Welcome back to Satan's Trilogy. This is Book 3, Chapter 2, and it is reading 77. I am the author and the narrator. Sit back, relax, and let the story unfold. Esther grabbed her aunt's left arm and walked outside with her to find the others standing on the sidewalk laughing and enjoying the evening. Esther and Aunt Brandy joined them, and Esther quickly asked Dade to see everyone home in the Mustang. Esther would take the twins and Aunt Brandy along with her to Amy's home, while Riley Grace would go home with her sister Raven on the Ninja. Esther walked up to Raven and Riley Grace as they had just mounted the Ninja and smiled at the two of them. Esther quickly announced, "I think my cousin has a place we can ride dirt bikes. Are you both free Sunday morning?" Riley Grace jumped off the Ninja and hugged Esther. "Oh yes, that sounds fantastic," said Riley. Raven smiled at Esther and commented, "Esther, I love you." Raven waited for Riley to mount the bike again, then said to Esther, "Either you are a psychic or you have tremendously sensitive hearing." Esther leaned into Raven, kissed her on the cheek, and whispered into her ear, "I wear a hearing aid, a really good one." Esther smiled at the two girls. "Sunday morning at 9, if that is good for you." Raven pulled her helmet on. She was thinking about Esther's hearing aid, but quickly said, 9 it is." She looked over her shoulder and saw Riley had pulled her helmet on, so Raven sped off on the Ninja. Riley quickly grabbed Raven's waist as they sped off. Everyone had left except the twins and Aunt Brandy and Amy. So Esther grinned at the girls and said, "Let's take that awesome-looking Escalade. It looks like a tremendously opulent ride." Esther quickly said, "I will drive." Danielle said, "I can ride in the back seat with Aunt Brandy. I hate being a passenger in the front." Amy sat between Danielle and Brandy. Aunt Brandy was tired and a bit drowsy. She commented, "Tomorrow is Wednesday, our final lesson. Let's hurry home so I can get an early night's sleep." She started to doze off. Esther was about to leave the parking lot when a large black Mercedes sedan pulled in front of her and stopped. 4 men jumped out of the car, with 2 going to each side of the Escalade. Esther lowered the driver's window and asked the person outside of her door what the problem was. The man wearing a black suit quickly replied, "No problem. We just need a moment to speak with Danielle and Tracy." He glanced at the black Mercedes and a door opened. Dr. Mann stepped out of the car. He again had a white suit on with a white tie, and while his eyes were not pink, he could have easily passed as an albino. He stood in front of the Escalade with the headlights on him. He then moved towards the passenger seat on the Escalade where Tracy sat. Speaking softly, Dr. Mann spoke to Tracy as she sat in the passenger seat. "I apologize for this abrupt and informal meeting, but you were very difficult to find, and time is of the essence." Dr. Mann smiled. "May I have just a few minutes of your time? I have a proposition for your sister and you." He smiled and repeated, "Just a few minutes." He then turned and walked to the front of the car and waited. Tracy turned to Danielle in the back seat. I guess we should hear him out, Danielle. Danielle was releasing her seatbelt. I agree. Let's hear what he has to say. Danielle and Tracy were both sitting on the right side of the Escalade, and so they opened their doors and walked to the front of the car. Sadly, Aunt Brandy had fallen into a deep sleep and was breathing heavily. She was missing the excitement. Once the twins were at the front of the car, Dr. Mann thanked them for their time. With a soft voice, he started to discuss the future of the W.O.W. and how it was rapidly changing. After a lengthy bit of rhetoric, Dr. Mann finally got to the point and said, I would like to have the two of you on our team, part of the Satan team. Dr. Mann waited a split second, then continued. I believe that Bo Jackson has offered you 3 times the money you made before. We will offer you 6 times the amount you made last year, and we'll give you medical, dental, and life insurance. Dr. Mann smiled and continued. You have a verbal agreement without a signed contract. Dr. Mann paused, then added, You're still free to decide your future. Join the winning team and prosper, or go with the underdog and be the underdog. Dr. Mann stood back slightly and waited for a response. Danielle looked lost, and Tracy was questioning herself. They looked at each other and realized they needed a third party to help decide this. They both said Esther, as they realized the decision would easily be decided by their new friend. So they walked to the driver's side of the car and asked Esther if she had heard the offer. Esther's response was, I heard the entire conversation. Tracy asked, Esther, this is a lot more money and benefits, but I am not certain. What do you think? Danielle and Tracy both watched Esther for a sign. Esther smiled at the twins as she opened the car door and stepped out. Standing alongside the girls, Esther quickly gave her view of the proposal. You both realize that in professional wrestling, there are the good guys and there are the bad guys. This makes for interesting competition and drama. Esther smiled at the twins and added, You have never been on the bad side of the competition. I don't think you would like it. Esther paused and waited for the twins to comment, but they remained still and focused on Esther, as if they knew there was more commentary to come. Esther smiled. Everyone loves the W.O.W. twins, and they'll love you as the newly invented Gothic twins. All this would be easy, and don't forget, you will be making a lot more money. Esther paused, glanced at Dr. Mann, and continued. If you join the bad guys, you will make even more money. Esther said with some enthusiasm, then added, But people will no longer love you, and you will be despised, even hated. Esther then touched both girls on the side of their faces and said, You both have loving hearts, and I think you should stay with Bo Jackson. Happiness is far more rewarding than a job that damages the heart. The twins had listened to Esther closely, and while both had understood her reasoning, the thought of more money had nearly pulled them into a position that could have ruined them. Danielle and Tracy looked at each other and realized they were not interested in being the bad guys. Tracy spoke first. I have to think that anyone that needs 4 bodyguards is in a really bad position in life. I say we keep our fans and turn this offer down. Danielle quickly said, I agree. We are the new Gothic twins, and people are going to love us. I am so excited to do this." Dr. Mann had been listening to their conversation and spoke up. "Needless to say, I am very disappointed. But as your friend points out, professional wrestling needs both good and bad. So we will create the drama together, and I won't have to pay you a penny." Dr. Mann grinned at the twins, then quickly turned and went back to his car. His bodyguards quickly followed him, paying close attention to everything around them as they kept guard of their employer. The Mercedes sped off, and the twins turned to Esther, smiled, and seemed relieved. Tracy turned to Esther and said, "Thank you, Esther, for pointing out all of the obvious pluses to being part of the good guys in our profession. I am afraid that Daniel and I might have made a regrettable mistake had you not been here." Danielle quickly added, "Dad never played the role of a bad guy, and I am certain he had good reason." Tracy quickly said, I think Dad would agree with our decision, and I know he would have liked you, Esther. He liked straightforward, honest people." The twins and Esther went back to the car, finding Aunt Brandy sound asleep in the back seat. She had missed this little bit of excitement. Poor Aunt Brandy always became sleepy after enjoying beer and pizza. To her, it was like the effect of turkey on millions of people on Thanksgiving Day that somehow put them to sleep. Amy Grace had witnessed everything, but chose not to say a word. Esther took Amy home, and because the time was later than they had expected, Esther walked up to the front door with Amy without the twins. After saying hello to Amy's father, Esther promised that they would meet again at a better time. The twins were more than willing to help with Aunt Brandy when they arrived at the apartment. Taking Aunt Brandy to her bedroom, they helped to remove her clothes. Tracy commented that Aunt Brandy certainly was a beautiful woman. Esther giggled and said, "I have to agree. I heard the same remarks from Day not too long ago." Esther finished pulling the covers over her aunt, who now would sleep until morning. Esther looked at the twins. "Thank you so much for helping with my aunt." Esther looked at both twins and commented, "My aunt has many qualities, and she is a very capable woman, but I think her finest hour is yet to come." Esther smiled as they left Aunt Brandy to her slumber. Brandy was breathing heavily before the girls reached the door. Once in the living room, Tracy suggested they make some Jamaican coffee, and Esther quickly agreed. The aroma filled the apartment. Esther commented, "It is such a relaxing aroma, that of freshly brewed coffee." Tracy and Danielle were sitting at the table sipping their cups of coffee, and Tracy looked at Esther and said, "We want you to sleep with us tonight." Tracy waited a short moment and continued, "We love you, Esther, and we are ready to find you in our dreams and stand by your side." Esther paused as she sipped some coffee and collected her thoughts. She then spoke to the twins. "Perhaps you both are now capable of seeing my dreams and understanding them." Esther hesitated and said, "As you wish. I will join you in the bed after I have exercised and showered." Tracy said, "I am really tired, or I would love to watch you exercise, but I have to go to bed." Danielle smiled at Tracy and turned to Esther. "I have reached my limit for the day, too. We'll both see you in our dreams, Esther." Danielle gave Esther a hug and said, "I am off to bed." Tracy repeated the same. Esther went to the extra bedroom and opened her closet door to spend a few minutes on the internet. First, she reviewed the daily updates sent her by her friend John, head of the federal agency Data. Quickly reviewing the information, she moved on to communications from her birth father, close associates in the Middle East. And then Esther read communications from friends around the world. Esther had a dozen close relationships with her father's friends from around the world that she felt committed to, and another half dozen intimate friends that she felt close to and enjoyed communicating with. There were also several people that she felt committed to, for they had shown extreme appreciation financially to her father and her. Esther could type very fast, and she read even faster. In only 18 minutes, Esther closed the closet door and started her exercise. Her evening's correspondence was complete. She focused on her movements and the shape of the room. Warriors must know the surroundings and the risks that surround them. Esther could sense that the twins had entered the room, yet she maintained her focus on the exercise. At the end of the 60 minutes, Esther found the twins asleep on the floor at the corner just to the right of the entry. Taking a close look at them, Esther knew they were out and in a deep sleep. Going to her bedroom, Esther pulled down the sheets and prepared the bed for the twins. Returning to the spare room, Esther managed to lift Tracy and carry her to the bed. She then returned and did the same with Danielle. Both girls were wearing their new black silk nighties that were tremendously attractive on them. Esther pulled the sheets over the twins and left for her shower. Esther wasn't yet ready for bed. The warm shower had helped to prepare her body for the 3 or 4 hours of sleep that she needed. Having removed her clothing, Esther stood in front of the mirror. While in a daze, she relived the immense amount of horrors that she had witnessed in her life. It would not be easy for the twins to see any of this. And yet they said they wanted to share their bed with her. Esther decided to release her fears and to join the girls after the shower. The twins were choosing their path, and they wanted Esther to be with them. Having finished her shower, Esther dried her hair with a hand-held hair dryer. She then pulled on her nightie and went to the bedroom. Drawing the sheets back, Esther climbed into bed, sandwiched between Tracy and Danielle. She had felt their warmth on each side of her the night before and had enjoyed the feeling. Pulling the sheets back up, Tracy had already moved her hand over Esther's waist, and Danielle had moved her back closer to Esther. Esther prepared herself for sleep and the dreams to follow. Esther closed her eyes and found herself in a poorly lit dressing room. The twins were waiting for their father to end his match at the center ring. Danielle and Tracy were only 10 years old. Someone opened a door and stood at the entrance, studying the girls. He then said, "Your father has asked me to stay with you while the match continues. He is doing very well." The man entered the room, closing the door behind him. He turned the latch on the door, locking it from the inside. As he walked towards the twins, Esther stepped out of the shadows at the far corner of the room. Esther was wearing her favorite ivory linen pantsuit. Watching the man carefully, Esther spoke to the twins. "Danielle and Tracy, do you know this person?" Tracy spoke up. "He's a wrestler. His name is the Boss." Tracy turned to Esther. "He comes into our room when Dad is gone and touches us." The man had shifted his attention to Esther. Grinning with a forced smile, he said, "Kids, You can't believe anything they say. He started towards Esther. You're a very attractive young woman. Perhaps we can be friends. Holding out his arms, his oily body showed the muscularity of hours of weightlifting. When he was within striking distance, Esther flashed her right fist into his neck, instantly stopping the large man in his tracks. His large hands went instinctively to his throat, where Esther stepped forward and grabbed his ring finger with her right hand while using her left hand against his forearm. Esther then pulled the ring finger back, breaking it away from the hand. The boss was now on the floor on his knees in terrible agony. Esther released his hand, and he fell on his side, still gasping for air and gazing at his damaged hand. Esther looked towards the twins, and the scene had changed. They were standing at an outdoor food stand with a tall man with long brown hair. Danielle noticed Esther first and called to her, Esther, come here. We want you to meet our father. The twins were Esther's age and looked so happy. Their father turned around and smiled at Esther. Long brown hair, brown eyes, and a strong, square chin. And as he smiled, a slight dimple formed on his right cheek. His smile was welcoming. It is so nice to meet you, Esther. My girls have told me how special you are to them. He studied Esther for only a second and added, I can tell that everything they said is true. He laughed in such a pleasant way, then spoke, Please let me buy you what I consider the world's greatest hot dog. He asked if Esther liked chili on her hot dog, and Esther replied, Yes, thank you. As he turned to order the hot dog, the scene faded, and Esther continued to sleep. It was the twins' turn to go somewhere unfamiliar. Esther was only a child, certainly not more than 6 or 7. She was on the shoulder of a dirt road, kneeling alongside an old man wounded and laying in the dirt. The twins were watching from across the road. Someone came yelling towards Esther, speaking in Chinese. The charging man held a rifle and reached within 12 feet of Esther before Esther thrust her right arm out towards the man, releasing a knife that landed in the center of his throat. He stopped immediately and fell to his knees, then fell into his face. The knife was forced through the back of the man's neck. The old man that Esther was kneeling by had been mortally wounded. He spoke in Chinese to Esther. Esther held his hand as he passed away. The twins could see a tear fall from Esther's eyes onto the man's cheek. The dream ended. All 3 girls slept the rest of the night. Esther awoke at 4:30 in the morning and went to the second bedroom to do her morning exercise. The twins remained sound asleep. 1 hour later, Esther opened the closet door and pulled out a chair, placing it in front of her computer monitor that was waking up. Quickly reviewing some emails, Esther closed the closet within minutes and went to the kitchen to start breakfast. She found the fresh bread dough had risen, and so she turned on the oven. She then went to the shower. She showered quickly and pulled on a white cotton robe that was only knee length. Esther started to lay her clothes out. She had decided on black chains for the day. She wanted to ride the ninja to school. Her top would be a golden, loosely woven knit sweater made from an expensive Angora blend. At the moment, Esther had her cotton socks on, but she would remove them when leaving her school, replacing them with ankle socks paired with her new boots for the day. Moving quickly to the kitchen, Esther busily prepared the morning's breakfast. Within a few minutes, the twins entered the kitchen and gave Esther a huge hug. They did not discuss the dreams. Aunt Brandy came out, having smelled the Jamaican coffee, and Esther met her as usual. At midpoint in the living room with a cup of coffee, Brandy took a sip. "Oh my God, that is heavenly." Brandy held onto the cup and made her way to a chair at the table. And I'm going to stop there. That was reading 77. Hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, please be safe and take care.